When I first started working with my first client in insurance, I did something that I tend to do all the time when I'm approaching a new industry. I have a certain appetite to understand where do they come from, what were the challenges, and what are the experience they bring along. And what I found really interesting is like insurance is something that commoditized around the late 1800s. And I found out in the year 2012 with my first client in insurance, and it's very interesting because in the same year I was moving out of Munich to the countryside. And then the countryside in Bavaria, you know, there are those private societies like wearing Bavarian costumes and stuff and having much parties and beer, but there are also societies, which I didn't know existed, kind of insurance societies. They were in the same, I guess, at the same time, 1800s, they were there for families if the one who is working got sick, could not bring food for the family, bring money. They would simply care for each other and make sure that everything would be all right. So what I learned is, wow, there must be a thing about insurance, and this thing is trust. And I digged into it even more. Well, since then, the time has changed a little bit. Everything is getting more digital, and so does digital trust. And here in Germany, and especially here in Berlin, when it comes to digitization of money, you're totally in the spot of discussions that are never ending, because there are the ones that say, well, cashless is king, why am I not in Scandinavia? And there are the ones that say, if you take away my money, then we really have a discussion going on. So money is not fun when it's in Germany. Really, when it comes to frictionless payment, it's a thing to discuss. And I guess that at the end of the day, what people feel, because I don't believe that it is true, is that with digital, there is a certain kind of insecurity coming into what has been secure before. We know when we're talking about financial services providers, banks and stuff, fraud prevention, that this is not the case. But when you talk to the people, if you go out there and ask them, you will get approximately the following picture, and I found it super interesting. Consumers versus trust in AI assistants. When it comes to financial guidance, only 30%, like 1/3 of the people asked, would say that they are comfortable with the fact that AI is helping making decisions in terms of money. But, and this is really thrilling, when it comes to a medical surgery, okay, I mean, it's about your health, you cannot buy that with money, then approximately half of the people would be fine with the fact that AI assists or decides where to do what with your body. Really, really interesting, and it shows that this human thing about trust and digitization, you cannot logically define it, but you need to get behind it. Because people feel like exactly this picture. Robots are going to take away my job, I'm going to be unemployed. They didn't need to know the Terminator movies just to feel like this, but sometimes I guess this picture really matches. And back in the 1960s, when technology was always super scary, I mean, we didn't have anything but maybe kitchen appliances and a video recorder or something, they invented stuff that is super scary. I mean, cardiac pacemaker, I don't know how you would feel, but if somebody would decide that a machine based on an algorithm decides whether to stimulate my heart with electricity is something I need to have implanted in my body, I wouldn't feel so well about it. And at the same time, they invented the easy-to-wear hearing aid, and somehow people in that time, in the late 1960s, have gotten the narrative right because people understood it's helping us living a better life. So how come? If we align the narrative to a positive thing, not threatening us, then the chart that I've just shown changes totally. If we ask people if they feel secure when paying online, then most of the time they say, yeah, well, you cannot be sure, and so many companies, so many services. So there is a huge potential for people to understand that financial fraud protection managed by AI is a good thing. as in a type A tech room like here, we all know that this is a good thing, but people need to understand that, and I really think that's interesting, that payment service providers and banks are not utilizing this benefit in marketing also, something like that. And the super trend e-health that is coming, preventive healthcare. If somebody needs to go to the doctor maybe every day, then he needs to have certain measures done, values checked and stuff like that. If you would have a machine that would help you defining when you really need to go to the doctor, not just for checking, okay, yeah, well, but it's in range, your blood pressure or something like that, it would be a good thing. And I just read today, when I woke up in the morning, that Samsung is implementing heartbeat analysis functions in their new smartwatch. So a huge potential for people to understand that it is not about scaring them or selling their health data, especially not in Europe, but supporting their health to live longer and have a good life. So applying the right narrative really changes the game, and the main tech that we are about is, at the end of the day, our cell phone. We can do whatever we want, but there is one thing that will not go away. This is the remote control of our lives, if you like it or not. So, having said that, and knowing that this is a device we would not give to our neighbor. Anybody wants to try? No? Okay. Keep it for yourself. The good thing is we are in the European Union. I'm not sure if you have heard about the China social security social scoring system, where you're punished when you're crossing the street on a red light with your face on a screen, or getting points deducted, so you're never allowed to travel outside the country again. I guess it's a good thing that we are in the EU, and I'm not a big fan of GDPR. I'm just so shocked that it's always about the negative side. To be honest, GDPR is nothing that we could call a piece of cake or something you implement within one day. Nevertheless, this consent management thing is customer centricity as we are all seeking it. If we would utilize it to talk to our customers in a beneficial way, maybe then they would have also gotten the true story behind it. It's really interesting. In Germany, so many people say, I'm not sure, yeah, well, digital, cell phone, paying with your phone. Those big companies, at the end of the day, they are doing what they want with your data and nobody can do anything about it. Now they have a leverage against it or to find out because of the right for information, right to be forgotten, and so on. But do the companies use that for KYC, know your customer, customer centricity, etc.? Do they use it? I don't think so that they use it like to the full leverage that is behind it. Same goes for PSD2. It's the big regulation that is coming this year. It's mainly about payments. Some also call it the open banking regulation. And it basically tells you that your bank now needs to accept that you are using Google Pay, because right now when you open up Google Pay, there is supported banks. If your bank is not among those, well, then you need to have an intermediate service like PayPal or Boon from Wirecard. Okay, but in the future, your consent will decide whether your bank account is open to a service provider or not. And this not only implements comfort and puts the customer into the center of the experience, but it also implements a lot of security measures that those companies need to comply with. And I believe, at least the banks that I'm working with, have not yet really come across using this as a marketing thing. My bank sent me a letter, yeah, Mr. Schneidenbach, there will be a downtime before September due to changes to the software system. And the rest of the story, could you please tell me now what the benefits are for me? Very interesting. And another regulation that is coming, and I guess it's really necessary, is the e-privacy regulation. It should have started with GDPR, but they were discussing it, and they are still discussing it. Some also call it the cookie directive, because it is about who is allowed to access your device. When it comes to my phone, my whole life is on that. It would be a good thing if there would be a regulation that is a little bit more advanced than our telecommunications law that we have in Germany, which is not covering Skype calls because this is not a landline call, and so on. And because of one hyper trend that for me is not relevant. I don't want to have this in my home, but our children really ask for it and will grow up with the fact that voice assistants and the megatrend voice will be everywhere, like in your car, in your kitchen, everywhere, as we already know, like from Siri or with Alexa or Google Home. So we are in Germany, and it's a very, very car-centric country still. And when it comes to AI and digital trust and digitization and innovation, I hear a lot about Tesla, and there is one question that I really hear all the time, like 2012, Tesla go-to-market of the Model S. Now we have Audi A8, S-Class, new 5 Series BMW. They are technically more advanced, but they don't have the same features. Why is this? And how come that the Germans don't simply just switch on the autopilot feature if it is technically possible? And I have an example which might at first look funny, but it's that serious. I guess we can agree that this is somehow some kind of kitchen appliance, maybe a microwave, and bananas. Because you have certain experience, you have done some machine learning in your brain. Now we're getting to it, it's a toaster and bananas, and now it's totally clear. This is the entry point to some research of universities and companies like Robert Bosch GmbH, and I invite you to write down the archive IDs because this is research that is really interesting to deep dive into. This is a banana, and the machine has been trained that it's not a slug. It's a good thing, but the problem is with an adversarial patch, a sticker that to us doesn't make sense, you change the digital signature of this picture so it thinks it's a toaster. Yes, we're still in the fun zone that we are leaving exactly when I press this button. You can hide people that way. Not funny. Maybe it's good if you're a tourist in China and crossing on a red light, but it gets to be not funny when this happens. Image segmentation, and now we look at a machine looking at this, clear case, human people, red, stop, no drive. And the guys here at the University of Freiburg and the Robert Bosch GmbH found out that with a certain pattern, I hope you can see it, it's a little like a grainy signature, dusty. You can change the signature, this is very subtle, it's not as colorful as before. You can change the prediction to an open road, free to drive. And there are far more examples like the stop sign with a small patch on it and the car thinks free to go. So this is the current state or the last year's state of training for automotive when it comes to autonomous driving. And now people could say, well, machines are super stupid. I mean, if I show that to my wife, she says, yeah, I never want a self-driving car. Are we human beings so much smarter if we don't have much time to decide? I guess that everybody would say, well, those lines horizontally are tilted in a way. The machine would say no. And the machine would say, look again. And we would say, yeah, they are tilted in a way. The machine would say no. So the machine would say, humans are super stupid, just look at it, it's geometrics, you can measure it. Yes, that is true, but nevertheless, we do not use this in automotive. We work for BMW, Volkswagen, and so on, as something to build trust. The drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry, they do it all the time. When they find something new, they write about it, there are press articles, and they say, well, we're having a new breakthrough, and it will take maybe 8 to 10 years until you can buy this substance, but then it will be safe. This builds trust. And it's a great thing because we are used to having trust built over time. And I really find it very interesting that Fiat Chrysler Automotive on their Capital Markets Day last year released this slide in their deck. And we are right in the middle of this, actually, level 2 to level 3 of automated driving. And they say, well, it needs more research, more time, and more money to make it resilient. Well, it's nice that you say that to your investors, but also tell that to the people that ask themselves, what are the Europeans doing when it comes to automated driving? So at the end of the day, I believe digital trust can definitely be constructed, can be made with a positive narrative. And I really love the narrative of this venue, of this event, because it's putting people very much in the center of it. Ms. A also said it, yeah. So it's a good thing, and I would really like you to follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn for more insights like this, how to build digital trust in an age where everybody thinks that robots will kill us. Thank you very much.